I'm delighted to present the Islamic Relief campaign video, which is a real testimony to the creative skills of the Islamic Relief team.
Salam and welcome to the launch of the Ramadan campaign. Alhamdulillah means all praise and thanks to God. It's our way of expressing gratitude to the one who made everything possible, Allah. We want to let you into our secret. If we give thanks, we get much, much more. So we are grateful because everything we are given comes from Allah. That's why, through wars, disaster, disease and struggle, we at Islamic Relief are grateful for the opportunity to serve the world's poor. We are grateful for the food delivered and the bellies filled, for the thirst quenched and the schools, hospitals and villages built, for all the operations, medicine and lives saved. The hard work is paying off. Alhamdulillah for the chance to earn the good pleasure of Allah. Alhamdulillah for the £68 million worth of relief that we've been able to spend on the Syrian people. Alhamdulillah for the 38,000 orphans that we now sponsor in 24 countries. Alhamdulillah for the 92 million people that we've helped over the last 30 years. Alhamdulillah for every penny you've donated and for every time you've cared. We are grateful for 30 years of Islamic Relief. Let's spend the next 30 years serving humanity, helping even more people. So, if we are grateful, Allah gives us more. Well, this year, we're about to get twice as much. Get ready, because this is Islamic Relief's Ramadan campaign 2014.
Before I introduce our next speaker, I think we need to give a big round of applause to all of the volunteers who really are the backbone of Islamic Relief. Our next speaker is a man who really needs no introduction. A media veteran, dare I say, a national treasure. His professionalism and integrity demarcate him from others in an industry currently marred in scandals of power and corruption. You'll know him as the face of Channel 4 News since 1989, a man who has more than a few interesting stories to tell, from covering the fall of the Berlin Wall to Barack Obama's inauguration. He's been the recipient of many industry awards, including both Journalist and Presenter of the Year, as well as the Richard Dimbleby BAFTA Award for Best Factual Contribution to Television in 2005. He is also a tireless advocate for various causes, from supporting men, women and children in African prisons to young people with autism. It's a real honor to introduce a personal hero. Please welcome Jon Snow.
Assalamu alaikum. Respect on the eve of Ramadan. Time for contemplation. When I was 18, somehow I won selection by voluntary service overseas to go for a year to Uganda to teach in a secondary school. I had never been on an aeroplane, I had never been out of Britain, never experienced life beyond the cosy confines of rural England. In short, I'd had a privileged and secluded upbringing. I had no experience of other faiths. I had no experience of other ethnicities. I was an innocent abroad. Imagine the shock of waking up in Namasagali on the banks of the River Nile, 60 miles north of Lake Victoria, 15 miles from the nearest post box, 15 miles from the nearest telephone. There were two other Mzungus on the Catholic mission school staff, that's white men. They were both, in Swahili, they were both priests, and I wasn't even a Catholic. For several weeks, I was desperately homesick, but my learning curve was very fast. I remember my first week teaching in the school, and I was looking out at the class, and I turned round I guess the class was about 70 people. I turned around and I started writing on the blackboard. And somebody made a rude noise. And I turned around and I said, "Who was that?" And the girl in the front row said, "That black boy at the back, sir." I said, "But you're all black." And she said, "Ah, sir, some of us are much blacker than others." And I looked, and he was a beautiful blue-black Nilotic boy from the Sudanese border, and she was a creamy cappuccino from the southwest of Uganda. And I suddenly realized the scales fell from my eyes, and I realized it was just like looking at blondes, redheads, brunettes, the whole thing. Suddenly I realized I was still in the same world that I had left behind. And the thing which kind of completely changed my life was to be in the south looking north. To be amongst people who had absolutely all the intelligence, the gifts, the cleverness, the inventiveness of the people I left behind in the north, but none of the resources and very few of the opportunities. And I think from that moment on, I sort of kind of wanted to be involved in changing the world. Well, I tried and I failed, and I became a hack, and this is what you see before you. A man who's only famous for wearing bright ties. So that is why I'm here tonight, because above and beyond anything, I believe passionately in the power of the human spirit, the power in each and all of us to use our own individual and collective talents and enthusiasms to alleviate and improve the lot of others less fortunate than ourselves. And where better to see that in action than in this very hall? We are rightly here tonight on the 30th anniversary of Islamic Relief, on the eve of Ramadan, celebrating a most extraordinary and exceptional achievement, this remarkable humanitarian organism. Not only that, we're here tonight, as you've seen, to pledge and commit ourselves to do still more. So let's first celebrate the record. Founded to bring relief to victims of the devastating famine in the Darfur region of Sudan in 1984, Islamic Relief represented the first major organized humanitarian NGO in Britain's Muslim community. Within just 10 years of its foundation, it had become the first Muslim charity to attract UK government funding and has enjoyed a fertile relationship with what was then ODA and is today DFID. A further 10 years on found Islamic Relief the only Muslim charity to become part of Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee. In other words, Islamic Relief is an organic element of the UK's generous preparedness to reach out to others in need across the world. I suppose many of us of my generation think we're kind of somehow making up for some of what went wrong in the empire. Today, Islamic Relief is working in 44 countries, raising 200 million a year to do so. 200 million pounds, all from, essentially, the British Muslim community and those who love it. Pakistan is the biggest recipient of Islamic Relief's aid, about 70 million a year. And I've seen Islamic Relief in action there, in Pakistan, not least in Kashmir. Who can forget the shattering aftermath of the earthquake in 2005? It was an unbelievable scene because it was the most impenetrable place, mountainous, roadless. The roads had been rocked to pieces. The rivers were all over the place. It was incredibly difficult to reach people. I was sent to report, and I found Islamic Relief the first out there ready to deal with the consequence of an event in which 100,000 people died, 130,000 were injured. But for Islamic Relief, the gravest challenge there lay in the 3.5 million people who had been displaced. And I saw at first hand Islamic Relief, hand in hand with the International Red Cross, with the United Nations, with Save the Children, and many others, toiling in appalling conditions, first to rescue, then to shelter, and then to feed. It was a vast and integrated response. There's nothing standalone about Islamic Relief. It is utterly connected to the entire endeavor to improve the lot of those less lucky than ourselves. I saw Islamic Relief at work in Haiti, where, as a matter of fact, I think there are few, if any, Muslims. Indeed, I don't think I met a Muslim all the time I was there. And yet Islamic Relief spent £5 million tending the survivors. So this is not apartheid charity. This is not simply Muslims looking after Muslims, though of course that is a natural priority. But where there is need, Islamic Relief never turns its back. Yet again, the consequences of that earthquake in 2010 were massive. 250,000 people died. Most of the people that Islamic Relief tended were either Catholics or believers in local faiths. For me, this year, the most searing image of suffering and deprivation has been captured in that shocking photograph from Yarmouk, the Palestinian refugee camp in Syria, which has been deliberately, as a weapon of war, starved into the most appalling suffering and deprivation. That picture of face after face after face after face in the long wrecked streets, we all saw it on the front pages of our newspapers. People starving, queuing to try to get the few strands and seeds of food that were available. That camp remains terribly badly cut off even now, but even there, Islamic Relief have been able to make some difference. Each face tells a story of the pain and destruction wrought by civil war. Each describes the use of starvation as a weapon of war. In this hellish smash-up of a once intricate and beautiful part of the region, Islamic Relief is on the humanitarian front line, deploying £68 million this year alone in relief. I've seen Islamic Relief in Gaza. How proud we should be of what Islamic Relief is achieving in Gaza. For now we have the infernal scenario of both Egypt and Israel tightening the noose ever tighter around this beleaguered entity. Islamic Relief is now the principal NGO source of succor for the people struggling to survive in any kind of dignity there, hand in hand with the United Nations. Those are the two big and formidable providers of help. But these are not easy times. Whilst communal relations in Britain are good, clearly the issue, for example, of the Birmingham Schools has thrown up some areas that we need to explore. I went to one of the schools named. It was clear to me that there had been some kind of collision of cultures. The non-Muslim staff had been told there was to be no fraternizing with other members of staff. In reality, by the time the emergency inspection was carried out, there was almost no contact between the two groups. At the same time, the issue was quickly translated in the media into some sort of extremism scandal. In my view, that was a distortion. What happened in Birmingham, I think in large measure, was about the centralization of administration in this country, where education is sent from the center and meted out from the center on tablets of stone. Had anybody had a real feel for what was going on in Birmingham and been present on the education committee with power to affect what was going on in Birmingham schools, they'd have heard about it in the cafe, or dare I say it, in the pub. So we have this year, Islamic Relief have tagged onto a big public opinion survey, some surveys of what has arisen from the Birmingham Schools issue. What are British values? Don't ask me, I haven't got a clue. In fact, I have to scratch myself to remind myself I am British. Because at the end of the day, I always feel I'm a human being. That seems to me to be the most important aspect. In this YouGov poll, 62% of British Muslims declare themselves proud to be British, while the number who are not is just 16%. And let me tell you that 14% of Scots are not proud to declare themselves British. 67% of British Muslims believe in freedom, tolerance of others, accepting personal and social responsibility, and respecting and upholding the rule of law, the core values of Britishness as recently defined by David Cameron. A tiny 6% do not. Well, that is an interesting and corrective finding, and an important one. We have the additional difficulty thrown up by the terrible consequences of the US-led, UK-backed invasion of Iraq. I think in my life as a reporter and a journalist, simply because I had worked in that region, I covered the Iran-Iraq war in 1980, I was caught up in the Iranian Revolution in 1979, I interviewed Saddam, I spent a lot of time in Iraq. Anybody who went there knew of the tender sensibilities and balances that existed. And the idea that in some way you could crash in there with shock and awe and change the world for the future was in itself a shocking issue, a terrifying issue. And only now are the true consequences of it coming back to roost. I have no doubt whatever that Syria is, the ripping of the life out of Syria is a direct consequence of that violation of other people's territory. We must not let these developments drive a wedge between our communities at home. And that's why the influence of Islamic Relief right here in our own country is so important. It isn't just a question of what is being done overseas, what is being done to people in need. It is the fact that in binding together to look after people less fortunate than ourselves, we're doing something that people are doing all over Britain and which people are prepared to support each other doing. We are one human condition, and we have to bind together, and we have to stay together. This very gathering is testament to the vibrance, altruism, and confidence of the Muslim community here in Britain. But we all need to do more. There is still too much that separates our communities. There is still too little understanding of what each is about. Even today, how many people in Britain even understand exactly what Ramadan is? Equally, how many Muslims understand where the Queen fits within the Church of England and why? It's not about tokenism or quotas. It's about living together, growing up together, and working together. And that does not happen everywhere in Britain. We need, during those periods of contemplation, to rededicate ourselves to the great work that Islamic Relief is undertaking. Historically, this is a period of fantastic generosity in the Muslim community. Alhamdulillah to the raising of the money during Ramadan. Thank you.
Our final guest for this evening is a wonderfully talented artist. His album is shortly to be released, and you will get a taste of it as your dinner is being served. Enjoy.
Assalamu alaikum. God's peace be with you all. I am very happy to be here. It's an honor really for me to be here. Islamic Relief has a special place in my heart, and I feel fortunate, and it's my pleasure to be performing for you today at this very special event. This first song is a song of gratitude to Allah, which of course is for those of you who don't know, the Arabic word that refers to God, the creator and sustainer. This is a song of gratitude to Him, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the gift of Muhammad. Hope you like it. This is Allahu. It's an acoustic version as well. मौला मुझे अमीन के कदमों पे चला इस दुनिया में जीने का यही है रास्ता या खुदा शुक्र तेरा हम कैसे करें अदा भेजा तूने अपना हबीब मोहम्मद मुस्तफा अल्लाहु 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 अल्लाह अल्लाहु अल्लाहु अल्लाह There was a light that would shine from your face. In the night you would cry for us and pray. Nothing in the world could ever turn your heart away. Oh Allah, bless Muhammad who showed us your way. Allahu, 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 Allah. Allahu, 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 Allah. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته है नूर सहर चेहरे से तेरे और शब की रौनक जुल्फों से अल्लाहु 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 अल्लाह अल्लाहु 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 अल्लाह Sing with me Allahu 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 Allah Thank you very much. My brothers and sisters, sometimes in life we get what we want, but we still don't quite feel happy. And this song is a song to say thank you, shukran in Arabic, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us worldly gifts, but also for giving us spiritual gifts. The things, those intangible, seemingly intangible things that complete us and make us smile, make us warm, make us happy. Shukran Allah walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah walhamdulillah. Maula ki nazar pari to puri har ho rahi dua. सरमाया तेरा मिला तो मंजिल को काफिला चला मिल गई दिल की चाहत मिल गई रूह को राहत तू ही बस मेरा रहनुमा शुक्रान अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह شكرا الله والحمد لله شكرا الله والحمد لله شكرا الله والحمد لله You're the only one who hears us when we cry. You're the one who gave us words to help us fly when no one else was by our side. When I think of all the blessings in my life, And every day I saw my mother smile. My heart is nowhere left to hide. Now I know what you gave me. Now I see how you raised me up. With you beside me, I'm alive. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. तेरे दर पे ये सर झुक गया, तुझे पे ये सफर रुक गया, मिलके मुकम्मल हो गया. तेरा जो हुआ निगाह है करम, मिटने लगे जहाँ के ये गम, कुर्बान हर पल हो गया. मौला तेरी इबादत बन गई मेरी आदत, मेरी तू ज़मीं और आसमान. शुक्रान अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. शुक्रान अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. शुक्रान अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. शुक्रान अल्लाह walhamdulillah. One more time. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Shukran Allah, walhamdulillah. Thank you. Shukran. Shukran. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's an amazing dinner. I think it's just great, you know, to have everybody together. I mean, we're here for Islamic Relief. They've been around for 30 years now, so it shows that how good they are, what they've been doing, helping and supporting so many people around the world. They're in 44 countries already, so it's amazing. You know, this also, you know, kind of inspired me to get the Amir Khan Foundation, because, you know, Islamic Relief have done many charity events. They've gone to different countries around the world, and that's what kind of got me involved to do the foundation work, you know. So I think it's a great cause, a great dinner here, and I'd love to be part of it, yeah.
The government has two jobs. It obviously has its the money it collects from people to spend, and again we can be proud that for the first time ever we're now giving a guarantee of nearly 1%, 0.7% of our wealth every year to overseas aid. Never have we done that before. It's the highest ever, and even in austerity we've made a commitment to that. So that's the first thing. The other thing we do is we work with charities in the relief effort. So we agree programs with them. We work with Islamic Relief in Pakistan, in the Middle East, in Europe, sometimes in this country. So we're partners and we agree programs with them. We don't tell them what to do. We don't set their agenda, but we work collaboratively, because government support plus charity support can often give a much bigger result and a much bigger effort of helping people.
Well, I've just made a speech to the big Eve of Ramadan dinner talking about Islamic Relief and where I've met it in the world, in Kashmir, in Gaza, in Haiti, in Syria, even mentioning all those countries, and that's only a few of the 44. I think they do a remarkable job, Well, I think the amazing thing is, you know, they may be Islamic Relief, but they're not just looking for Muslims. They will deal with whoever they come across in need, in a crisis. Well, I think it's the most important thing of all. It's what binds us together. We're both human beings. You might be a Muslim, I might be, I don't know what I am really, but I'm I suppose technically a Christian. But we are human beings, and that's above and beyond everything else. And our spirit can be used, if we bind it together, to make lives better for other people.
Looking back at the wonderful, great work they've been doing over the years, but importantly to recognise the importance of sustainable, integrated development. And I think that today captured the essence of Islamic Relief in bringing people out of poverty and relying on themselves and not relying on charity. I've visited Islamic Relief projects in many countries. Most recently, I visited Islamic Relief work in the Philippines, and I saw with my own eyes how Islamic Relief's work is actually lifting people out of the danger, out of the calamity they find themselves in. So making sure that they have food on the table, making sure that their livelihoods are rebuilt, and above all, making sure that they have permanent shelters so that they can get on with their lives. Well, Islamic Relief is an important member agency for the Disasters and Emergency Committee because of their reach in very vulnerable countries across the globe, not just in Africa and Asia, in places like Haiti and the Philippines and areas like that. So they're an important partner because they have an amazing quality and strength to be able to respond very quickly and very efficiently to emergencies overseas. So we look to them and welcome them in the partnership of the DEC.
We started as just doing emergency work whenever there is a need. Now, alhamdulillah, we don't wait until an emergency takes place. If we know that the country is susceptible for emergencies, like Bangladesh, for example, being certain cities lower than the level of the seawater, we go there, we work with the Bengali government and the United Nations to prepare the cities and the villages, raise the levels of the houses, train the people in advance. What are you waiting for until somebody dies? So we try to do that. In development, alhamdulillah, we don't just go and feed people or build a school. We try to do integrated sustainable development, where at the end of our stay in a village, when we leave, people don't need us anymore. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've dignified the children of Adam. Nobody wants to beg for food. Nobody wants to beg to put his children in school or to feed his children. So we want to reach a point where people are dignified, people have a job, people have clean schools, people have good hospitals, people have clean water, and they don't need us anymore. That would be the biggest success.
If people can follow the wisdom and the fortitude and the belief as the workers of Islamic Relief, then perhaps countries like Syria and Palestine and disasters across the world would be benefited in a far greater way.
Highlights are too many to mention, but the most important highlight is the solidarity, the generosity, the compassion of the Muslim community globally. The British Muslim community is something to celebrate and something to recognize as a major contributor to service of humanity globally. Pakistan, Sudan, Syria, Philippines, Haiti, you name it. The British Muslim community and those Islam Channel viewers and beyond are the ones that have been the highlights of generously supporting Islamic Relief over the last 30 years. Islamic Relief's 30 years is because of the support, the generosity and the solidarity of the British Muslim community.
An evening of much reflection on the work of Islamic Relief over the 30 years, the event was full of inspiration, reflections and hopes for the future. It brought together people from many walks of life and different religious backgrounds to give hope to millions of the most vulnerable people across the world. May the coming years bring much more success to Islamic Relief and enable it to continue to grow. Ameen.